Just a minute. Okay, so very good morning to everyone. I am Mustafa Gazim, Associate Head PG AnC. So first of all, thank you for joining in on a Saturday morning and also amidst NSEM examination. So this session was originally planned in March, but got delayed due to certain unavoidable circumstances. And also to announce that today is going to be the last session organized by PG AnC 21-22 team, and which was successfully headed by Khushbu Kisnani over the last year. So I would also like to thank you all for all the support and motivation throughout our tenure. So starting with the session, today we are delighted to bring to you an informative and interactive session on women in STEM. This session would be addressed by Professor Rama Govindarajan. Professor Govindarajan is an eminent scientist at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research and works in the field of fluid mechanics. So in this session, she will be having a conversation with us on the following topics: role of women in nations development, life of women in research, and how to balance your life between personal and professional undertakings. So I guess all these are very relevant topics to ITK researchers as well. So I would now like to hand over the virtual stage to Shreyank Goyal, Manager ANC, to welcome our esteemed speaker and to carry on the session. So over to you, Shreyank.
Thank you, Mustafa. So now I welcome today's eminent speaker, Professor Rama Govindrajan, by briefly introducing about her. So she did her BTech in chemical engineering in 1984 from IIT Delhi. From 1988 to 1998, she worked as a scientist in National Aeronautics Laboratory of CSIR. Then she did her PhD from IISc in 1994. Then after that, she joined a postdoc at Caltech and completed in 1994. After that, she joined as a faculty member of Jawaharlal Nehru Centre for Advanced Scientific Research from 1998 to 2012. After that, she joined TIFR, that is partly TIFR Hyderabad and partly ICTS, International Centre for Theoretical Sciences, Bengaluru. Her research area is basically fundamental fluid mechanics, and she is in the board of reputed fluid mechanics journal like Physical Review Fluids, etc. She has mentored about 25 PhD students, and almost all the students are in IIT as a professors. She has also awarded with Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award for his seminal work in the area of fluid mechanics. So I welcome you, ma'am, to this session for the women in STEM. So we'll start the session. I would like to ask you to tell about your life from beginning, how difficult it is for you.
Okay, first of all, thanks Shreyank, thanks Mustafa. Yeah, you want to know about my life. I mean, I want this thing to be a conversation, so please, anybody like interrupt and talk. I mean, it's not like a talk or lecture or something. Yeah, so I mean, you can imagine like I completed my BTech in 1984. So you can imagine like how many girls at that time did things like that or how the situation was in those days. So I was the only girl in my class of about 54 students in IIT Delhi who graduated in chemical engineering. And in the whole of engineering, there were three girls out of some 300 in that batch. And in science, in the 5-year MS, there were about three girls. So that was the kind of thing. So I always joke that I've never studied in co-ed because I went straight from a girls' school to a boys' college. So I never studied in co-ed. But yeah, so I mean, things were very different in those days. There were lots more, um, or evident or direct bias. Nowadays, I would say it's bias is a little less and it's more indirect, but there's still a lot to be fighting for. There's still a lot of progress to be made.
So, ma'am, after that, uh, you did a job as a scientist. Then, what motivates you to join PhD again?
Oh, uh, in my case, I mean, now I don't regret doing a PhD, but I joined a PhD only because I didn't have a choice. Like at that time, when I went to the US, I met my husband who already had an offer from IAC. Like before we got married, he had a faculty offer. So, like, just because he was more senior, he already had a faculty job offer. We came to Bangalore, and in those days, Bangalore was a terrible place for a chemical engineer to try and find a job. I already had jobs in Bombay. I wanted to do like a research. I mean, I wanted to do an industry job, not do research. But being stuck in Bangalore, you can say I was forced to do research. And I realized at that time that there are only two things I can do in Bangalore. In those days, it was one was software, it was in its infancy, and it was just, starting to take some seed in Bangalore. I think at that time, Infosys was a little company being run in a little house in Koramangala, and so software was in its infancy, and there was aerospace, which was well developed. So I thought, okay, like aerospace is the thing I want to do. I don't want to, do too much coding all my life, although I love coding. So I moved into aerospace, and I realized at that time that Rodam Narasimha is a very, very good person who's doing research in fluid mech connected to aerospace. So I already had some background in fluid mech, having been a TA and having done several courses in my BTech and masters. So I moved into that, and luckily I could, do a PhD with Rodam Narasimha.
I'm taking a lead from the discussion. I guess I can interrupt as it's an informal conversation going on. So as you just said, like in the final years of their research, PhD and MTech, like most probably PhDs are confused between going to either a R&D or a corporate setup, or either to pursue like kind of professorship field or academia, to choose between academia and corporate. So your comments on that, like how to choose between the two, like if you are not very sure where to fit yourself.
Okay, so first of
Yeah.
all, I feel that in India we have very few, I mean, compared to other countries, we have very few people who have PhDs going into industry. Everybody prefers academia, but I think we should have a little shift in that. Like, you can do lots of good work in both these places, and there shouldn't be a particular bias towards academia. So, and besides that, it should be just an individual's choice. Like some people
Yeah.
do very well in industry, and as far as I'm concerned, I might have done well there. So, like, it's
And
okay. I
during like
did.
later in their career, if they realize they can be switched between the two, like through your
Yeah,
experience, have you seen like
so
sequence
it's
switches?
not it's so typically people believe that it's always possible to switch to industry but never from industry back to academia. That kind of thing is slowly changing. Slowly, like if somebody is doing very, very good work in academia, in industry, they are getting offers from academia at even a
Okay.
later age. So, but it's not as easy, because
Yes,
in
we all.
academia there's like lots of criteria, such as if you're applying for a full professor position, then like your
Mhm.
publications and how many students you graduated, all those things start mattering.
All this counts. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it needs to change more. That's what I would like to say.
And ma'am, you did your PhD after marriage.
Yes.
Yes. So, would you like to comment on that? That how you maintain your professional and personal life in that way? It is
Yeah.
important
First
for
of all, it
everyone.
wasn't. Sorry.
It is very important for everyone that how to manage professional and personal life, and then when you are married also.
Yeah. So it's true that, like for anyone, irrespective of gender, it's difficult to balance if you're, married when you're doing your PhD. In my case, it was a little more difficult because I had a small baby. In fact, my PhD entrance interview took place when I was in labor. So I came from the hospital to the interview. So then, yeah, very next day the baby was born, and so when the term started, I had a 2 month, 2.5 month old baby. So that was very difficult because you are I mean, a little child is a lot of work.
Yes, ma'am.
That particular stage is a lot of work, but if you need to get through both, you will get through it. Like, if you have no choice, you will get through it. That's all I can say about it. I can't say it's very easy or there's any simple formula to balance, career and child. It's not some easy thing, but everybody has to come up with their own way to solve it. And I think grandparents can help in this way. And so I would say that in my house, like I've always had, lot of encouragement on all these things from my mother and my grandmother. When I was a little kid, my mother was always working. So it was one of my grandmothers who looked after us when we came back from school. And it was a grandmother who stayed with us. Or sometimes, some years we were alone, like we had nobody to take care till my mother came home. But and similarly, like my mother helped out a lot with my children. So
Yes.
this is one thing. um, yeah, I mean, in general, I would say first of all that it has to be a joint responsibility of both parents, any child. So like child or any other household duty, like let it be changing a diaper or let it be cooking, let it be anything, there shouldn't be predefined gender roles. And in our house, we have always followed that. So I think that's very, very important kind of symmetry in this. So in fact, I was thinking today, like when you put this topic of, role of women in nation building,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Like I was thinking how funny it will sound if we interviewed a guy and said role of men in nation building, and we asked them to comment on what men can do for the nation. So, like the asymmetry is so big now, right? Like we need to correct that.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
very fact that we are actually worrying about whether women have a role in nation building or not. So, every time if we invert these things and the inverse also becomes possible, that's when we've reached equality, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
But ma'am, so it is just to it's mean to make out that women are important in as well as how much the men are important, women are also equally important in that way in
Exactly.
STEM also. So
Exactly.
sometimes people may think that only men can do certain things. In general, in what happens in India, everyone mostly think like that only. So that's why we have put that topic that how the women are creating bigger things. We know other examples also, like what is happening around in aerospace in like uh, uh, other women scientists, Anuradha TK and all others. So
Mm.
in that way, we have to put this. So
Mm.
this
Mm.
is the question from your side, that how that people must have to think in equal way that
Yeah.
women should be as equal as men.
Yeah. So yeah, I think like, a lot needs to change. So one thing is like before we even discuss about science, let's talk about general things. Like first of all, I mean, and you can't escape general things when you're trying to do science. Like if you want to get more women in science, you can't ignore the rest of, life. So for example, I mean, I'm right now sitting in Cambridge, right? I can go anywhere at any time. I can do what I like. I can take a taxi at 2 in the morning. And if a woman can't do all those things, normal things like, walk on the street after 10 p.m., some simple things which are very normal. If she is banned from doing those things, then like obviously life for her gets very restricted.
Yes,
So, like, we have to start from, nutrition for a girl child, saving a girl child,
yes, ma'am.
and allowing her to walk on the street in the night, in the morning, at any time.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
And
like,
like, okay, sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
Yeah, please continue, ma'am. Please continue,
no,
ma'am.
no, no, that's all. Continue.
Yeah, I was thinking like my women, like my female colleagues would raise questions. They are encouraged to raise questions as this interactive session. But on their behalf, I like to ask one question. Like through my interactions with my lab mates and all, I've come to learn that till a master's in an Indian society, it's all right for a woman to continue research. But for a PhD as a long-time commitment, I've seen like my colleagues saying that there's family pressure not to pursue PhD because get married and get settled down because of long-term commitment and like age factor and all those stuff comes in. So any motivation from your side on those lines, like to
Yeah,
women in STEM
yeah,
because hmm,
yeah. First of all, I'd like to say one thing, like, um, it is like a lot of women in their 30s and so on have children, and it's totally okay. Like it's not as if you're in trouble for having children or something just because you're doing a PhD. So like you can start those things late and it doesn't matter at all. Like my first child was born when I was 29, and this was many many years ago. I mean, I started my PhD late, that's a different matter, but this was like that. And I don't think like that should be a handicap at all. And unfortunately, we have to work a bit against society to, make society change its mind about this. So you're quite right that after masters there is pressure on women to, like not pursue a PhD, to get settled down, whatever settled means, and things like that. So I think like also parents need to be a little more understanding of their child's ambitions and support their child more. So this is something which each child and each parent have to sort out amongst themselves. But I've seen that, like I've met many, many young women over the last few years who actually like went against their family to do a PhD. They
yeah,
actually like fought about it and came to do a PhD. But slowly the parents also turned around. When they saw that the child was doing well, they kind of turned around. But at the same time, there is this bias. I think the basic problem in Indian society is that. Um, what if the woman is more educated than the husband and they want to maintain this strict inequality, like here and here, and I don't have to tell you which gender comes here and which gender comes here.
yes,
So like they want to maintain this strict inequality, and that's why they get worried. So I mean, this in fact, one I will change the story slightly because I mean I don't want it to become a story about a person, but this is based on a true story. Like this young woman, she gets like, let's say, a nature physics paper. So, like, that if a boy gets a paper in nature physics or something like that, the parents will be throwing a party. And this girl phones up her parents to say that I got this paper. And there was silence on the other side. And then, like, after some 10 or 15 minutes, I mean, 10 or 15 seconds, the parent says, why did you have to do that? Like now we have to find a boy with 2 nature physixes. So, like, I mean, given that strange, strict inequality thing, it becomes a big problem. So, I think like parents need to get out of that. We need more marriages where either both partners are doing great or even the woman is doing greater. It shouldn't matter. Like, if this becomes acceptable, then the rest of it will become acceptable. So, I think like one way to go is for people to find their own partners. People could say, okay, like, marrying me is not your responsibility. I'll take care of it. And then it'll be okay.
Yes, that's true. Like 90% of women which I've seen in like pursuing PhD, my colleagues are like they have fought with their family to be here. Like it's not a
Yeah,
consensus from their family. Till
yeah,
masters, it's okay. But I guess I'll
yeah,
I'll ask the participants my female colleagues to ask more questions because their concerns can be answered in a better way, and it's more of an
yeah,
interactive session rather than a talk. So I'll encourage them to ask more
yeah.
questions.
It'll be nice if a few of you can you can put your videos on so that I see you. I mean, it would have been nice if I was there in Kanpur, but
Yes, ma'am, we would have been more
yeah.
than happy to like host you here. And one topic was my balance between personal and professional life. So how to like do that balance? Like I guess you have partly answered already to that question.
Yeah, I think it's very, very important. I mean, the one key word, like in this conversation, if I want one key word to go back to all of you, it is symmetry. Just go back with symmetry, and then like most of it will get sorted out. So like, and in symmetry I mean real symmetry, not imagined symmetry. Like I've seen in India a lot of parents will say, oh, I treat my daughter equal to my son. My daughter and son get the same life, same opportunity, same this, same that. Great. But how many parents are willing to say that about their child in law? Like, how many parents are willing to say, I treat my daughter in law and son in law the exact same? So, like, just like my daughter in law brings tea for me, my son in law brings tea for me. Until that happens, the child in law is treated the same without a gender bias. So, every time if you look at that symmetry, then problems get solved. Like in our house, we do everything together. Like when our children were growing up, every single day we woke up at 4:30 or 5, latest by 5, usually 4:30 or sometimes 4. And we made the lunch for the children. We got everything ready. Then at 7 o'clock, they used to go to school. So the whole cooking for the day would be done by 6 in the morning. And then we went to our respective work, and when we came back in the evening we didn't have any work, so we would chat with the children or spend time with them. So this kind of thing is not hard. If okay, like you have to work harder. If there's one person who's fully doing everything in the house, it is fun. Like there's no denying it's fun for the other one. But if both are doing both and there's two full jobs plus a full home job, then you have to work harder. There's no, simple work life balance formula, but it can be made into a very nice thing. For example, like when me and my husband cook together, it's a very nice time for us. Like we used to chat with each other, discuss so many things before the kids woke up, and we could discuss like things to do with ourselves or things like that which don't have to do with the children. So once the children wake up, you don't talk about any of those things, you talk about things which are important to the kids. So
Yes,
things like that, like each couple or each family can work out for themselves. Incidentally, like I hate cooking. I avoid it like anything, and luckily like my husband loves cooking. And I like mindless labor, like I can do dishes or something like that. I
okay.
can do things like that for many hours, but I cannot. I mean, I don't like cooking, but at the same time, I do it out of a sense of duty. Like I put in my share of it.
The takeaway is symmetry. Like the word symmetry has to be
Yeah,
in
that's
place.
all. Like once you think symmetry, you realize everything is okay.
Yes,
But in India, we still haven't reached there. Like if a girl, if a woman changes the diaper for her child, it's considered natural. But if a guy changes the diaper for his child, it's like, oh, like unlucky guy, poor guy, that kind of thing. Severe sympathy goes to that guy. So, I mean, like, I see examples from people much, much, much younger than me, and that upsets me. When I see something in my generation, I'm okay with it. But when I see someone so much younger and they do this, I get very upset. So, in one of our relatives' houses, there was this young couple with a little child who was about a year and a half old, and that child was running around in this relative's house without a diaper, and the woman, the mother of that baby, had gone out with my aunt somewhere, and then this guy, this baby, did susu on the floor. And my husband immediately got up. He started picking up a cloth to wipe it and things like that. And the baby's father gets up, sir, 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 you can't do that, sir, you can't do that. And then, like, my husband said, okay. And he says, let her do it. And he points to me. And I thought that was classic, like it's his baby. Why does he think I would like to do wipe his susu? So this kind of gender bias in younger people, it shocks me. And I said, no, like I don't like doing that job. I won't do it. So let him do it. So I
Yes,
think like you can send messages like that.
yes, ma'am. And a word of motivation for all researchers in general. Like sometimes we are
Yeah.
stuck somewhere and get frustrated, like our simulations not
Yeah.
going as well as per our expectations. And so in fourth or final year, fifth year of PhD, you are stuck somewhere and we get frustrated. So
Yeah.
eventually, some to-do list to how to get out of that frustration. And because must have seen that you have guided like 25 plus PhD students, so you must have also mentored them. So how
So
to deal that pressure and frustration and to get motivated at the same time.
so you're quite right. Like this, most of the problems in I mean, a lot of the problems in PhD are independent of gender. And except for a few lucky ones, everybody has a tough time in their PhD. I think you guys would have read PhD comics, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, PhD comics is a real fun thing. Like many things come out like very clear over there. So, yeah, the thing that I would like to say, and like don't worry if you're in fifth year and haven't started doing this yet, or if you're in first year, you can start doing this. The idea is that don't put all your eggs in one basket. Keep one side basket which can move forward. So you can, this is one way to counter problems, which is that, like you reach some place, you've written this many thousand line code, it's not working. You put everything into one experiment and it's not working. You need like some other project which is there for your sanity. It may not be the main problem in your PhD. Don't ever give up on that. Like keep thinking, but it's easy when you can actually pull back and have another problem to work on. So for this, like keep doing reading, keep attending lectures, and in all the lectures, keep thinking about where you can connect to it. So a lot of people, if the PhD problem is here, then they wear blinkers, and if the talk is on a topic slightly away, they don't, connect the two, or they often don't even go to the talk. So, like, I feel that if you attend more and more and more talks, ask yourself in the talk, like, this guy or this person is speaking for an hour, but they've actually worked on this for 3 years before speaking, right? I mean, even whether it's a professor or a student, they actually put years of thought into it. They're actually condensing those years of thought into 1 hour for you. So, like, you can think like what went behind it in those 3 years. And every time you attend a talk, if you're thinking of the research which went behind it, you slowly start getting an idea about you know how you can handle your own thing. Like it's not a very concrete thing I can tell you, because obviously if there was a formula, then it won't be a PhD, it'll be a homework problem. If you can see the end of it, if there's a simple way out, you can do that. But the only way is to develop these things, It's like, when you play tennis, you need to develop your muscles or something like that. It may not directly win you a game, but you have to be in that position to win the game. So there's many things you can do in research which are like the side exercises to become fitter. So attending talks with this thought in mind is one very important thing. Attending talks and always asking a question at the end is a good thing. For women, I would specially say that, like, because there's always, like, when you're a student, there's a kind of shame attached to asking a silly question.
Yes.
And without asking silly questions, you can't ask clever questions. Like, even today, I'm going to become 60 this year. If I ask, like, 8 sensible questions, I'm sure to ask 2 dumb questions. So just give me a minute. My phone is ringing.
Yes, okay.
Sorry about that. I should have silented it, but I thought, like, who's going to call me at 5:30 in the morning? Yeah. So the PhD thing is, like, talks are one important thing. Reading papers is very important. So, like, I prescribe the following formula, which is that if it is a paper to do with your research directly, then, like, read every line, every comma many times, rederive everything they say many times, try to reproduce those results. Like, there's no amount of reading of that paper which is, good enough for you. So there'll be, like, maybe about 20 papers like that, where every comma, every full stop, and you can derive it completely. So somewhere more than 20 will be the number where very clearly. And then there'll be a whole host of papers, maybe of the order of 100, which you've actually read, like, not where you've gone and looked at a formula or something like that, but which you've actually read. So this thing goes with you. And then there are papers which you've browsed, which you've looked at generally. But during your PhD, I'll expect that you know the literature. And I always say that at least 1 hour in a week, you read a paper which has nothing to do with you. It could be on economics, it could be on music, it doesn't matter. But read a paper from an entirely different field. And these are the things which go with you. So, like, PhD is a hard time, but you have to get ready for something that could be harder, which is coming later. That thing is the following, which is that, as a postdoc, you're expected to have more independence. As a faculty member, you suddenly have, like, young people coming to you and saying, give me a problem. And that is the thing you have to train yourself for in the PhD, not just like doing your problem, which probably your guide has given you or somebody's helped you get it. But it's important to set problems. So it's important to think of the field in a bigger way. So always, like, the first chapter in your PhD thesis should be, your own thing. Like, it should not be what your guide has told you. It should not be anything else. It should be your own thing where you, over the last few years, you learn something about the field. And it should be, what have I learned about the field? What can I tell a person starting in the field? So address it mentally to a person who's going to start a PhD in that area. And then tell them, look, this is the field, and I've solved this, and you can solve this, or this. And that, already gives people an idea about how, if I read a thesis and I see a nice first chapter, I feel very happy about it. I feel that this student is ready for the future. So that is an important thing. Like, every day in your life, from your first year, write like 3-4 lines into your first chapter. So you read a paper, write about it, read a paper, write about it. Of course, everything you write won't go into the chapter, but you'll have a whole, list of ideas which come out. And this thing about attending talks and reading papers not in your area is something that's very, very important for people of this generation, because the research world is changing fast. Like every 5 years, like what you did would become outdated. So if you imagine that you will, you know, take what you learned in your PhD and do problems related to that when you're going to retire, that's not going to happen. So you have to keep changing your field of work. So you have to get ready. Like in my case, I did boundary layer stability in an aerospace setting, but I don't even do aerospace anymore. So like you have to change with the times, and you have to tool yourself for that. And again, like it's not a formula, but it's all these things which make you fitter. And keep thinking, criticizing. Read a paper, criticize it in your minds. Think how you could have done it differently, or you could have done it better.
So, what the takeaway, like you have to be a solver throughout your life. So it may be that you have started off with a topic in your PhD, but later in your career, you have to learn, like be open to learning new fields and
Yeah.
new things, and be in that. And then, like one more question from my side, like any tip to maintain, like it's a subjective question, but any good tips to maintain a healthy relation with your mentor? It's a formal relation we maintain, but any like what should be more respective on the side, or any tips for that?
Okay, so here, like, it becomes very, very individual. You know that there's a
Uh,
whole spectrum of
right.
kinds of relationships with a mentor. Like, for example, my relationship with my mentor was born in 1933. So he would be 89 if he were alive today. So he is from a different generation. So the relationship was very, very formal, as you can imagine. Like I would not just walk into his room, or I would not just ask him about something general. Maybe much, much, much later in life, I became a little more able to approach him. But most of the time, I carried notes. He was also the director of NAL, so I didn't want to disturb him. I would carry notes and I would ask special questions and come away. But even in that relationship, like I never called him sir, or, I never, was, what do you call it, very obsequious to him. And he never expected that also. But I mean, this formality is not there, not there to that extent at all with me and my students. Like my students can come up to me, they can tell me their problems which are not connected to research, maybe. So I think a certain degree of informality is nice, because like every time you can't be as productive as always. Like every week cannot be equally productive, so some weeks you might have to go back and tell your advisor, oh, I didn't move an inch forward this week. And then, like, if you have an understanding, your advisor can see that you didn't move an inch, but you tried. Like you thought you were moving, but you were moving forwards and backwards, so you stayed in the same place.
Be truthful to whatever you have done.
Yeah, so that kind of thing, it'll be easy if you can convey it to your advisor and you can do that. Some amount of other activity helps, like suppose your group went out for a dinner, or those things really, really help, because you understand each other as people, not just as, you know, uh,
Hmm.
advisor and student. So yeah, there's many things which need to be done. And yeah, you can, discuss these things with your advisors and say, how about, like, we all go for a trek, or we all go for a picnic. So those things can, break the ice or break the formality. And what else? Like, I think, yeah, I think the best thing is an open conversation about everything. Many things can get sorted out if both people are learning from each other, or both people are seeing the other. Otherwise, like, both have only expectations out of this relationship, and then that can be hard to satisfy on both sides.
Yeah, so it's the way, like as you have said, like the expectations on both the sides. But for one side, like from the student's perspective, they are hesitant to open up or to speak up their mind to their guides in a formal setup. So you're saying like to be more informal and to speak up your mind. If something is bothering you, you should rather than like cultivating it, speak out and resolve it at the initial stages.
Yeah, yeah.
Ma'am,
And this I find is a general rule. It's nice in life if you can just go up to the person concerned and talk rather than, like keep it in your mind and not bring it out.
ma'am, there is a question from
Mhm.
Srita.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Shrita.
Hello, ma'am. Good morning.
Good
Yeah,
morning.
I wanted to ask you, like, you would have come across many stress professionally or mentally. Like, how could you manage to deal with that?
And
Okay.
I want to add on this that how the emotional intelligence plays a role in that profession.
Sorry.
How the emotional intelligence plays a role while balancing the life professionally and personally.
I actually don't know, like, what what I would define as emotional intelligence. I know that it is a term which goes around, but I actually don't know how to define it. And Shrita, you have a very important question, which is that, from time to time we are stressed. By definition, this career is a stressful one. For example, like in many other fields, if you do well, you get the appreciation. For example, like, if there's a well defined job and you completed the job, then you've done a good job. Whereas here, you think you've written this great paper, and what do you do when the referees don't agree? Like, they just, I mean, sometimes you
Yeah,
get this kind of failure thing when you've done everything right, but it's still not enough. So that kind of, I mean, there's inherent
yes,
stresses like that. There's inherent stresses in the student guide relationship, because like it's a effectively a boss and person under the boss relationship, where the person can't leave and go so easily if it doesn't work out. So there's many inherent stresses. And yeah, I don't have a formula, unfortunately, but it does help, like whatever Shreyank called as emotional intelligence. It does help if we learn to stay calm, and we learn to deal with things and learn to be brave. I think this is important. Like, just out of not saying something or not sorting something, it can be bad. So for example, like if you totally disagree with the referee, like you should be brave enough to tell the editor that.
Yes.
You should be brave enough to tell the editor, this referee doesn't seem to understand. So, like that way, I mean, in any situation, it helps if you're brave and you write. I mean, you tell your thoughts very clearly. Of course, you think very hard before you say that. You make sure that as far as you can imagine, you are in the right. But if you are in the right, it's important to fight.
yeah,
And sometimes, like, fighting itself can be a de-stressor
yeah.
rather than bottling it up.
Thank you, thank you.
So, ma'am, at so it is about one. So, how can you tell other girls who are not doing PhD but they want to do, or there's some, so because in your case it is kind of different thing, um, but uh, but it is needed, it is the need of an hour that women should pursue PhD so that our academic so that there are equal number of female professors in our academic institutions as well as in research area. So what are your points, what are your comments to motivate them? And it's a duty, it's a kind of duty for others, for the society also, to help the women to come up with this so that we have a equal society at this level also, that is not still
Right.
there.
Right. So like first of all, if somebody wants to do a PhD, if they're passionate about a PhD, they should do it. Whatever be the stumbling blocks, they should somehow find a way to do it. And there are, people who can mentor, people who can maybe even talk to their parents, talk to their, I mean, talk, do something to help smooth it out. So it's good to even think of an intermediary who can help smooth it out. but they should do a PhD. They shouldn't give up their dreams just for anybody. So that's very, very important, that you don't sacrifice your dreams for everybody. And in my case, you said it was different. It was different because I didn't want to do a PhD and I did it. But at the same time, even to do that PhD which I didn't want, like, I don't think everybody was clapping and cheering when I was doing a PhD with a small baby. So, like, it's important to say, look, I'm going to do it and that's it. I have to make a career, I have to make a way forward, and this is my way forward. So, it's important to just do the thing and not get restricted. Don't worry about personal life, it will get sorted out. Nice things will come in your personal life also. So, never I would say like you have to give up one for the other, whether you're a boy or a girl. You should do both and you should do both well, and slowly, like, you will get the things which you know you need. So somehow just keep your optimism up and go ahead with it. It's harder when somebody's, a PhD is hard. It's nice when parents or somebody is on your side and understanding this thing, and it's much harder when they are telling you, why did you do it? I told you not to do it, which is what happens with many women. But at the same time, it's important to still be strong enough and do it. Yeah, because if you give up your dream, then like you'll really regret it.
And ma'am, what is your what is your thought on the way that you have to think like go with the flow kind of thing, or you always have some plans, you have some short-term goals or long-term goals? How do you think on that?
So I don't understand your question. Can you say that again?
Ma'am, how to think for
How to think of a research problem?
no, ma'am, not a research problem in any way, like when we are pursuing our career.
Yeah.
So do we have some short-term and long-term goals for both the
Okay,
life,
okay.
both personal and professional life, or we just have to go with the flow that what is happening around us is okay?
Okay, okay. So in research, this is a kind of hard question to answer. You have to have a long-term goal, like let's say 5-year goal. You can't have a 30-year goal in terms of the research question.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's very hard to think what will be a pertinent question like 25 years from now. So, like, you have to have a go, you have to have a plan, a proper plan for the next 5 years, I would say. And of course, you will not pursue that plan completely. You will deviate from the plan because research is not a homework problem. But you need to have a plan and you need to keep redefining that plan. And you have to think bigger. Like, you should not think, of little epsilon delta variations on your previous problem. So, like, you have to, and it's nice if you have two kinds of problems. One of them I can call bread and butter problems, and another I can call like very nice problems. So, the bread and butter ones are the ones which are not exciting, but you learned about it, you learned the techniques, you learned everything, and you can think of, some problems which are obvious, ways to proceed from your earlier work, and that will lead to a paper most likely, and it may even lead to papers in good journals, but that is bread and butter where you're not personally excited about it. And the other one is like something more risky, more new, more challenging. Play with that also, like every single day do a bit of this and a bit of that. That way, like, out of the 5 or 6 exciting things you try, something may click. So in my career, I've found one thing very, very useful. Like, one very important thing has been summer students. So, students who come for 2 months to work with you. I've had like more than 100, maybe of around 200 such people who came for short-term projects. So for them, I'll give something which I don't know at all, like very risky. Just try out something for 2 months. And like 1 out of 10 of those have actually come out as something bigger, which went on to PhD students. Maybe 2 out of 10, like that. So like if you try a whole variety of things, you're able to do, more diverse things in that way. But all of this is not formulated, just each individual style. You have to work out what's your own style. Like just because somebody told you that's their style, you don't have to follow it. But keep a plan for 5 years. That's very, very important.
And I want to ask one more question to you. Like, it's a very controversial and kind of subjective question also. But many of us are not very sure what to do after PhD. And all of in the fourth year, everybody start asking you what are your plans after PhD. And as we know that in India, opportunities after PhD are very like limited, and we say also it's a controversial or debatable point. We say that highest degree and lowest value as per IT scenario we see. So, what are all the opportunities you see after pursuing a PhD in Indian setup? Like what people can like? What are the opportunities for PhD doctor students in India as, as per your experience? So, I guess it's a very subjective question, but still, if you can address that, it would be good. Like,
No, first of all, like, I mean, if you want to go to a completely different field, you should be open to that.
hmm.
Like, suppose you feel after a PhD that I did the PhD, but this is not what I want to do the whole of my life. You should be open to looking at things. And I feel it's never too late to change your area and do well in a new area. I've done that myself. So, like, you can actually go to a different thing. Secondly, like, you can look at all the industries, all the things, all the openings, and see where you can contribute. Maybe you can do something for a company which they themselves didn't imagine. So you could offer something new based on your studies. It may not be based on a vacancy, but sometimes, like, go approaching a company with something novel works out. You could do a startup if you're the kind of person who can, afford some risk, and that would be really nice. Like if you can. So, for example, climate problems are going to pick up, but by definition, like a majority of startups end in failure.
Hmm.
So, like if you are willing to take a small risk of, by small I mean 2 or 3 years to give it time to see, you might, the rewards may be very big. It's like a high risk, high reward situation. So, like that is one thing which is going to become bigger and bigger as time goes on. So, that may be an option. And of course, the usual other options, university,
Yeah.
industry.
So I guess we are like falling short of time now. So I'll now request the audience to ask any question, like unmute themselves and ask question directly to the speaker if they're having any.
Somebody is knocking on my door.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm
definitely.
making too much noise. One second.
So
Yeah,
any
so
question from the audience?
Hello, good morning, ma'am.
good morning,
It's
Anjali.
not a question, but after listening your words, I am strong enough to pursue my PhD because I was thinking, and because of society norms and something, it was very hard to decide. But by your words, it makes me more strong to pursue my dream. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
all the best for that. And I'm very, very sure that you'll do great. Like you'll do amazing.
Yes, ma'am, yes, sure.
Any more question from the audience? So I think like if there are no more questions, we can close this session, ma'am. So
Yeah, thanks so
it's
much for the
over of
opportunity.
yeah. So on behalf of ANC, I'd like to thank you again for this wonderful and like very interactive session. And thank you for giving us time. It was our pleasure. We would have been more if you would have been to our campus, we would have been more delighted. But again, thank you for taking out time and speaking on these crucial issues. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. Bye.
Thank
Yeah.
you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We're closing this session. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.